Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Echoes from the Basement, an X-Files podcast. I'm your host, Alice, and each week I revisit a classic episode of The X-Files while sharing my take on the strange and mysterious adventures of Agents Scully and Mulder. And who knows, I might even make a believer out of you. Hey everybody, how's it going? Happy Wednesday. We're on episode 15, Lazarus. This episode is located at the Maryland Marine Bank at 5:55 p.m. The episode begins with Agent Scully in a briefcase. She's talking to another FBI agent who appears anxious. She says, "You need to relax." He replies with, "The bank will be closing soon." Scully says, "Are you sure they're coming? This wasn't a fake tip." The other agent says, "I can feel it. They're coming." They share glances out at each other, thinking the same idea. Just be safe. Agent Willis is the other agent's name. He speaks to some other agents on his microphone. Scully reveals a gun in her luggage. We see a black car with white stripes waiting outside the bank with two individuals loading their shotguns. It's one man and one woman preparing to enter the bank. The man says to the woman sarcastically, "What, are you nervous?" She says, "No, I just don't want our luck to run out." The man goes on to state that this woman is his lucky charm and that they'll always be together. The couple passionately kiss, and then the man pulls out a mask and shoves his way through the bank door. He yells at everybody to get down. He's not messing around. He points his weapon at Agent Scully. She calmly gets down on the ground. Agent Willis proceeds to also get on the ground. The masked man makes his way to the teller's desk, but not after pushing some of the witnesses. He orders the teller to put the money in the bag. Agent Scully and Willis lock eyes and prepare their weapons. The teller shrieks in terror as she starts throwing money into the duffel bag. Agent Willis points his weapon at the masked man and barks, "Freeze! Drop the gun, FBI," etc. The bank robber turns around and puts his weapon at Agent Willis. Scully joins Willis, her gun drawn as well. The masked man pauses, lifts his shotgun, and shoots Agent Willis, sending him flying back. Scully calmly and collectively fires back at the masked man, but Agent Willis and the bank robber both go down. We see that the mask slides across the bank floor. We are then taken to the emergency room, where the bank robber succumbs to his wounds. The doctors continue to work on Agent Willis. Scully watches as the doctor tries to bring the agent back to life. She says, "Come on, Jack, come on, Jack." The doctor says to Scully, "Jack has flatlined for 12 minutes. They shock him again with a defibrillator, but no pulse. The doctor turns to Scully and states, "We've done all that we can do." Another doctor says, "Do you want me to pronounce the time?" Scully panics and says, "No, you can't give up on him." The doctors reply with, "He's dead." Scully says, "Again, go again." The doctor urges Scully to let him go, but she doesn't. She states to the doctor again. The doctors shock Willis again. But in the background, we see that the bank robber's body rises. With every shock, his body rises, not Willis's. The doctors see no pulse. Scully demands that the doctors go again. They shock Willis again. We then see from the background the bank criminal's tattoo, a dragon that breathes out the word luck in fire. The doctors and Scully manage to bring Jack back to life. Everybody is shocked and in disbelief. We are then zoomed in on the bank robber's body, though, that lies in the background. We're at the Bethesda Naval Hospital, 12:51 2 days later. Agent Willis looks like he is close to death. We see machines surrounding him, helping him breathe. He opens his eyes and his pupils are huge. He hangs his legs off the bed and unhooks the breathing device. He walks away and starts leaving towards the hallway. He then retrieves his clothes and vanishes until we see a nurse and an elderly patient being spied on. We see a piece of tubing clutched in Willis's hand. He waits until the nurse leaves, and we see flashes of when he was shot at the bank. Willis stares in disbelief into the mirror while examining his face. The bank robber is being retrieved from the morgue by Agent Willis, who stares down onto the corpse. Willis reaches for the body's hand and tries to steal the bank robber's wedding ring. Trigger warning, he then reaches for some scalpels and picks something out. Clip. Willis takes the ring off the severed finger. Agent Mulder arrives at the hospital where he joins Scully in trying to find Willis. Mulder states that Willis hasn't been home or in his office. Then he states, I heard something about a mutilation. Trigger warning, Scully states that 3 fingers were severed by someone with surgical shears. Scully then goes on to say that they lifted prints from these shears and they belong to Willis. Mulder replies, you said he was chasing this bank robber for over a year. Scully states that Willis was obsessed with this case. She believes that Willis is suffering from post-trauma psychosis. Mulder states that Scully's theory doesn't explain why Willis would just vanish into thin air. We find out that the bank robber's name is Dupree. Mulder asks Scully about his partner, Lula Phillips. Scully explains that Lula and Dupree met when she was serving a 10-year sentence for manslaughter in a prison in Maryland. Dupree was a prison guard during that time. The warden eventually found out about the couple's romance, but Lula was released May 22, 1993. Scully says she was released 1 week after the first robbery. She goes on to explain the details of the robbery and how an old woman teller died because of the couple, all because she was just too slow with putting the money inside the bag. Scully goes on to explain that the couple took turns. One robbed while the other waited in the car. The couple has killed 7 people and have stolen $100,000. Mulder states that there's a lot of money she can keep to herself now that her partner is dead. Scully replies that Lula's face has been posted everywhere, all over the news. Mulder looks at the file and states that the couple was married. Scully says, so what? Mulder says, I think this case is more complex than we think. Willis sliced and diced those fingers to get at the wedding ring. We see Mulder holding a picture of Dupree from the case file up to his corpse. We are now back to Willis. He breaks into a home, smashing the window and then opening the unlocked door. He enters, shrouded by darkness. He says, anybody home? Lula? He walks around the home. He has found nothing and no one. Willis reaches into the fireplace and doesn't find anything. Lula has taken the money. We then see something appearing, covered in blood on Willis's arm, the dragon tattoo that we originally saw on Dupree's arm. Scully and Mulder are examining some prints. Mulder states that whoever was holding these clippers was left-handed. Scully says, whoever? Mulder states that Willis is right-handed. Mulder checked the files, and it stated that Willis shoots with his right hand. The bank's video footage shows Dupree is left-handed. Scully is like, okay, I'm kind of confused though. Mulder asks, how long did Willis flatline before you guys brought him back? Scully replies with 13 minutes. Mulder takes an EKG strip from a file. He asks Scully, what does this look like to you? He hands the strip over to Scully. Scully examines and sees something crazy, but she explains it as an instrument malfunction. Mulder repeats, what does it look like? Scully glances at the strip again. She says, 2 heartbeats. Mulder states that the 2 men went into cardiac arrest at the same time. They were both technically dead. Scully says, yeah, but we resuscitated Willis. Mulder goes on to explain, you resuscitated his body. Even though the 2 men were in the room, only 1 man came out alive. Mulder eerily says, but which one? Very spooky. We're at the University of Maryland, Department of Biology. Scully and Mulder are discussing near-death experiences with a professor at the school. The scientist asks what happens during a near-death experience. Scully replies, some people see a light, some people see some other things. He then asks, how do you explain that as a scientist, though? Scully says, I think these people are just hallucinating. The professor goes on to explain that some people who have had near-death experiences can't wear a watch because of the increased electrical activities in their bodies, which causes their watches to malfunction. Now, I just want to make a side note. Is that true or just X-Files lore? Mulder explains that Dr. Barnes believes that there is a burst of energy that is released during a near-death experience. And this is the reason behind all the people saying that they see some sort of light or they watch themselves outside of their body. He goes on to explain that people come back changed. Scully questions, well, changed how? Personality shifts, psychic abilities, new lease on life. The professor goes on to explain, Mulder replies, what about the negative consequences of these near-death experiences? The scientist states that when you die, there is a time where your body is vulnerable. He goes on to explain that there was a pilot he knew who died in a plane crash. He recalls floating up in an aura of light, and then he felt an overbearing need to return to his body. He was revived and remained the only survivor of the crash. But then the pilot started to experience visions. These visions consisted of having intimacy with his wife, but in places and ways he doesn't have memory of. Well, one of the passengers on the plane was having an affair with his wife. The scientist says the dead passenger's consciousness was transferred into the pilot. So Scully asks, then what happened? The scientist replies that the pilot became a schizophrenic until the day he, trigger warning, murdered his wife. Mulder mutters to Scully, well, that's a pleasant story. Mulder and Scully walk down the stairs to the exit, talking about what the scientist had said. Scully believes in near-death experiences, but believes that Willis's disappearance is connected to psychological matters, not supernatural ones. She goes on to say it could be a form of stress. Being shot could hurt Willis's mental stability. Mulder asks, well, how well do you know him, Scully? Scully replies with, well, he's my ex-boyfriend. We dated for almost a year. He was my instructor at the academy. Scully clearly has a type. Mulder smartly says the plot thickens, which I also find very funny. Scully shares some more lore that her and Willis had the same birthday and that Willis was always tense and never could relax. Mulder says, do you think he could be predisposed to this type of mental health crisis? Scully says, I will believe that he is having a mental health crisis, then believe his body is being possessed by Warren Dupree. Flash forward to Willis. He kicks down the door to a dingy apartment. He retrieves a gun from the man living there's nightstand. The guy is like, WTF, who are you? Dupree points the gun at the man and says, you're a creature of habit, Tommy. Tommy is still like, who the heck are you? Willis orders Tommy to get out of bed. In reply, Tommy says, I can't, I'm naked. Willis barks at Tommy to get out of bed and that he doesn't want to shoot him lying down. Tommy is still questioning who this man is. Willis rifles through Tommy's fridge and takes out a beer. Willis asks, where is she? Your sister. Tommy chuckles nervously and says, Lula? He says, I don't know where she is. Willis charges towards him. The TV flickers before Willis kills Tommy. They both look at the screen. Lula is on the news and she's a wanted woman. Tommy says, looks like the FBI is going to find her before you, pal. Willis sternly says, is that what you think now? That's not what I think. I miss her. This whole time, Tommy just looks so confused. Willis goes on to say, I came back here because I missed her. I see her everywhere. Tommy points at Willis's stomach and says, you're bleeding. The former agent looks down and his shirt is stained with blood. He then points his gun at Tommy. Tommy is still like, what's going on here? Willis says, you set us up. You sold us out to the FBI. Tommy starts to recognize Willis, but not as a FBI agent, as Dupree. We hear echoes of bullets from the hallway. We assume that Tommy is dead. We're at the crime scene at the Desmond Arms Resident Hotel. Agent Scully is on the scene, talking to another investigator. The police are investigating Tommy's death. The officer says that there was an anonymous 911 call to Tommy's room. The detective says that the man is Thomas Phillips. Scully figures out it's Lula's brother. Mulder is walking around the crime scene. We see some blood on a pillow. Scully asks, what's Tommy's lore? What can you tell me about him? The detective says he's single, lives alone, and has a small criminal record. Mulder asks, was the TV on when they found Tommy? The detective says no. Mulder notices that Tommy mostly watches TV because of the lack of books in the apartment. And by his body position, Mulder believes Tommy was watching TV before he died. Unexpectedly, Agent Willis shows up. He's trying to take a look at the crime scene, but the police officer at the door is saying, I need some ID. Where's your ID? Scully and Mulder are shooketh. Scully confronts Willis, but Willis starts to see some flashbacks of Agent Scully shooting inside the bank. Willis says that he doesn't have any ID. Scully, can you tell the cops who I am? Scully smooths things over with the door cop and escorts Willis into the hallway. Scully says, "What the hell, Willis? What happened? Where have you been?" Willis comes up with this lame excuse that he wasn't himself and one day he just woke up on the street. A very believable story. Scully insists that Willis needs to go back to the hospital. Willis insists that he's fine and that he's not going back. "Oh, no, you're not going to send me there." He makes a huge fuss over it. Scully and Willis go back and forth on basically he shouldn't be working this crime scene right now. Willis says, "This is Tommy Phillips' place, right?" Scully is just like, "Dude, go home, please, let this case go." Willis sternly says that Tommy was killed with a .45. Lulu, a Lulu weapon of choice. How convenient. We then see that Willis is very determined to find Lula. Scully says, "Okay, but you're not going to work this case without a medical and psychological checkup first." Scully and Willis entered the crime scene. We then see he shakes hands with Agent Mulder and they chat a little bit. The police officer tells Willis they found a fingerprint on the TV. Well, that's clearly a problem since the former agent was in the apartment and murdered Tommy, so that's going to be a huge problem for him. We're back at the FBI headquarters. We're at a firing range. Mulder sneaks up on Agent Willis. Mulder says, "Nice shot." Willis says, "Yeah, I gotta get recertified again after everything that's happened." Mulder says, "I won't worry about that. You're a pretty good shot." You see that Willis has shot this cluster of bullets straight into the chest of this paper villain. Willis asks Mulder, "Well, what can I do for you?" Mulder pulls out a card from his back pocket and says, "It's Scully's birthday, and I wanted you to sign the card." Mulder watches as Willis signs the card, thinking, "Dude, you just messed up big time." Remember, Willis and Scully share the same birthday. Mulder goes back to the basement and hands Scully the card. She says, "You're 2 months early. This is really weird." Mulder states that the card is from Willis. He says, "I thought you two shared a birthday." Mulder says he clearly doesn't know when his own birthday is, and he also signed the card with his left hand. Scully sighs and says, "Oh, so you just tested him. This was all a test." Mulder says, "I did test him because the evidence for Tommy's murder is missing." Scully questions, "What evidence?" Mulder replies, "Well, the fingerprint is gone. Someone stole the print before we had time to analyze it." Scully says, "You think Willis is the culprit?" Mulder replies, "I'm not sure if Willis is actually Willis." Mulder begs Scully to believe something psychic is happening to Willis, and it all came from his near-death experience. Scully sternly says, "Can't you just accept that this case is not an X-file?" She goes on to explain that Willis passed all his exams and he is free to work the case. Scully says, even though he forgot our birthday, Willis is not possessed. I too have forgotten my own birthday. Yeah, but it's really hard to forget your own birthday and somebody else's birthday that you share it with. Mulder says, "Yeah, did you forget how to sign your name too?" Mulder takes out another form before Willis was shot. He compares the signature to the card. One paper has his full name. The card just states Jack. The two handwritings are different. Scully inhales some copium and says, "It's all just stress, Mulder. We all know that stress can affect somebody's writing. You have nothing, Mulder." We see Willis at his desk. He's looking at crime scene photos and then a picture of Lula. The phone rings. He looks concerned and hangs up the phone. Willis runs out of the office and Scully is like, "Dude, where are you going?" Jack says, "I have a break in the case. I have a tip that someone has seen Lula. She was seen at the post office earlier today." Scully says, "Oh, by the way though, have you seen the evidence from Tommy's murder? It's missing." Willis replies with a "and?" Scully says, "Well, you were the last one to touch it." Willis says, "I don't have your fingerprint. Don't point your finger at me. I don't know anything." Scully just kind of stares at him. Willis says, "Well, now get out of my face. I have a case to close." Scully and Willis go to Lula's apartment complex. They knock on the manager's door. The man answers, and Scully and Willis introduce themselves. They show the manager the picture of Lula and say, "Have you seen this boy?" Just kidding, they ask, "Have you seen Lula?" The manager says, "Yep, she's in Tevin. I saw her 2 days ago. She paid first and last month's rent in cash." The manager points to Lula's apartment. The two agents make their way down the hallway. Scully says, well, where's our backup, Willis? Have you called them? Willis said, I did. They should have been here 10 minutes ago. How strange that our backup is not showing up. They see Lula holding her laundry, entering her apartment. She bolts. The agents run after her, and they are all located in the basement now. Willis and Scully split up and canvass the basement. They hear clanks and strange noises every time they think it's Lula. Then, out of nowhere, Lula surprises Scully with an axe, but Scully rushes Lula and they struggle. Scully subdues this criminal. Willis joins them. Scully says, she's all yours, Jack. He creepily replies with, like a dog on a leash. Willis tosses his cuffs to Scully, and Scully's like, dude, I already cuffed her. Willis says, Uno reverse. These cuffs are for you. Put them on. Scully's just Pikachu face and it's like, WTF, mate. Willis says, put the cuffs on or I'll shoot. So Scully puts the cuffs on herself. Willis says, come on, Lula. I want to look at you. Lula is just confused. She's like, don't touch me. Willis is rambling about the situation and how insane it is and that this body isn't his, while Scully is handcuffed to a radiator. Willis tells Lula that he knows her and everything about her. He says, ask me whatever. He tells Lula when her birthday is, her favorite color, but Lula asks a very personal question. She asks, what did we do after we got married? Willis says, we went down to the beach. I took out a knife and sliced my palm open. I then sliced yours open as well. We made a blood pact, and the blood dripped into the ocean. Lula says, then what did you say? He says, this is so we can be married in all the oceans of the world. Then he goes on to say that he made an oath to Lula that he would never take off his wedding ring. That's a lot of commitment. Lula is overwhelmed by all this. She believes Willis. Agent Mulder arrives at the apartment complex. The manager says, when am I getting my reward? Mulder and the cops just kind of ignore him. They are both worried about Scully and Willis. Mulder says this person is not Willis. The cop says, well, the manager ID'd him, it is Willis. We saw him and Scully together. Mulder says, it's not, let it go. You're not probably going to get it. The detective says to Mulder, this isn't an X-Files thing, right? Mulder says, does that really matter? We're both after the same thing. We then hear a Mulder's phone ring. It's Willis. Mulder immediately asks where Scully is. Willis says, you're an FBI agent. You can figure it out. Willis then proceeds to put Scully on the phone. She says, Mulder? And then Willis takes the phone and Mulder starts to panic. Willis hangs up. Willis clearly has a plan, but Scully says it's not going to work. She goes on to say that the FBI's policy is not to negotiate with kidnappers. But you already know that, Jack. Also, Mulder doesn't follow the rules and policies anyway, so it's not gonna apply to him. Willis angrily shouts, stop calling me Jack. Scully says, well, that's your name, Jack Willis. Willis replies with, my name is Warren James Dupree. Scully goes on to share a memory that they both share. She says, Jack, please try to remember. He has flashbacks of a snowy memory Scully is describing. Willis says, don't try any tricks on me. I saw that you left me to die on the hospital table while you tried to save your friend. Scully says, well, that's you. You are my friend. Willis replies, too bad. He was gone already. I watched him leave. I saw him slip away through a long black tunnel. Scully says, no, you were brought back. He pulls the gun to Scully's face. You shot me dead, he screams. Then you let me die. Scully nods her head back and forth. You won't pull the trigger, Jack. Willis says, say that name one more time and I'll shoot. Willis says, not yet. Remember, she's our ticket. The couple starts bickering over soda. Scully asks, how much soda have you had, Willis? Willis says, why? She says that Jack is diabetic, which means Dupree is also diabetic. Too much sugar can kill you. Lula says maybe that's why you're having stomach problems. Scully says abdominal pain is the first sign of a diabetic coma. You need insulin. Mulder is listening to a recording of Willis's field notes. He goes on to say some scary stuff as if he became obsessed with this case and these people. Agent Mulder's pager beeps. He explains that a drugstore was broken into on the corner of Old Forge Road and Madison. He explains to other officers that Scully is located somewhere in this general area. The police are just like, okay, what does this have to do with anything? Mulder states that the insulin and needles were stolen. Willis is diabetic. Flash to Scully, scattering insulin bottles on a coffee table. Jack is clearly having a medical emergency. Then Lula pushes everything aside and pulls a gun right up to Scully's face. She orders her to drop the needle. Scully says without insulin he's going to die. Lula says, so what? Put it down. Willis is like, dude, what's going on here? I need that insulin. Lula aims the gun at Willis. She says, you still haven't figured it out, have you? It wasn't my brother who set you up. It was me. How do you think I got away? The minute you stepped into that bank, I left. I got the money and got rid of you. 2 birds with 1 stone. At least I thought I did. She smashes the insulin bottle. The local police receive a call from Lula. Mulder answers. She says, listen carefully. Willis is feeling under the weather. Mulder replies with, where is Scully? Put her on the phone. Lula says, nope. Mulder says, I need proof that Scully is alive or no deal. Lula pulls out her weapon and says, she's alive. Mulder says, don't touch her. Lula says, start collecting some money. If you ever want to see Scully again, I want $1 million by tomorrow. Okay, bye. The police manage to trace the call, but Mulder says forget it since Lula is using Scully's number. They can't trace it. We're at FBI headquarters. We're hearing a replay of Lula's call. Mulder is having another agent look at the tape. They hear something. They hear an engine sound in the background. They then hear that it's a small plane taking off. Mulder is back to working with the local police. The detective tells his men that Mulder has something. They're like, yeah, right, he probably has an alien abduction. The detective says Mulder is actually really smart and cool, so back off. Mulder explains that from the last phone call with Lula, they have identified a small plane. They located an airport that's close by. He circles an area on the map, stating Lula is somewhere in this area. With all our forces, we can canvass the whole area in 3 hours. Let's just do it right. We see this rundown home. Scully is cuffed to the radiator. Willis calls for her. He says, was there snow? Scully says, yes, Jack. It was December. Jack seems like he's dying. Willis goes on to say that he saw a red stove. Scully replies there was a wood-burning stove in the cabin. He then says it was cold, so cold I had to wrap you tightly in a blanket. Jack starts to fade away. Scully pleads to Jack to not close his eyes and to keep talking. He sees the memory of the bank and repeats what he said that night. Everyone on the ground. Scully pleads, no. Willis then sees a flashback of when he was shot. We see Dupree's face instead of Willis's screaming at Scully. Someone knocks at the door. Lula grabs her gun. Who is it? She yells. The voice replies with, this is Booker T. Can I speak with you? On the other side of the door is a priest, saying he wants to spread the word of the Lord. And come to find out, this man was the secret agent all along. He speaks into his mic that he has found Lula. Scully yells, put the gun down. He says, remember the light I mentioned? It's beautiful. He pulls the gun towards Lula's stomach. There's nothing to be scared of, Lula. They kiss one last time. We then see that Willis shoots Lula. The cops burst down the door and finds Willis dead. He uncuffs Scully as she screams for Jack. Dupree's tattoo fades from Willis's arm. We're back at the FBI HQ. Scully is packing up Willis's desk. Mulder hands Scully Willis's watch, saying happy 35D. Mulder says next of kin and points to Willis's things. Scully replies with, no, both his parents died and he was an only child. We see that Scully is saddened by the loss of her friend. She goes on to explain that she's meeting a mutual friend tomorrow, and what is she going to tell him? What is she going to say what happened to Jack? How will she explain this? Mulder says, well, just tell him Lula died yesterday with a shootout with federal agents, which resulted in Willis's death. He was killed in the line of duty. Scully sighs and sits at Jack's desk. What do I tell myself, Mulder? Mulder just kind of dips and says goodnight. Like, he doesn't even try to comfort her. He's just like, all right, bye. Scully says, Willis's watch isn't working, Mulder. It stopped at 6:47, the exact time Jack almost died at the hospital. Scully asks, what do you think this means, Mulder? Mulder replies with, whatever you want it to mean. I think this episode was pretty entertaining. X-Files really loves a good body-switching plot in the episode. Can't say that I blame them. Also, that I thought it was weird that Scully dated her professor. Also, that she didn't believe or want to believe that Jack was someone else, especially when his handwriting was different. If you're switching bodies with someone, you probably should learn their name and how to spell it. But anyway, thanks for listening, all you truth seekers, abductees, and X-Files enthusiasts. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the show. And remember, the truth is out there. You just have to find it.